Well, it seems like that's it. Harman Smith finally lost his marbles. I was just looking at his channel to see how he had been doing, and the first thing I see is Diddy Kong is way better than P Diddy. Jesus Christ, talk about rage bait. How does he even come to this outlandish title? You're comparing a child you-know-what to a fictional ape in a Nintendo game. Harman, are you insane? I was at first planning on talking about his take on Pal World, but that will be something for another day. I want to tackle this video right here. So everyone, grab a snack, grab a drink, and let's get into this circus.
One of the things that really truly infuriates me as a Nintendo fan is seeing non-fans, people who don't know anything about the company, don't know anything about the characters, don't know anything about Nintendo's success at the global level, will try to do is they will try and make these weird, arbitrary, nonsensical jokes that don't make any sense.
Why are you even getting so offended if people just make jokes? If you actually get so offended over people making jokes about Nintendo, then wow, your skin is just paper thin, Harman. People can make jokes about anything they want, unless it offends other people, of course. Then you shouldn't joke about it. But making jokes about a game company that is a joke to begin with, I think that is okay. So don't get all up in your fifis, Harman.
That don't relate to anything, that just kind of falls apart. If you know even a little bit about the people involved, the characters, and how successful they actually are. You know, we see this a lot with Pokemon specifically, like where people always try and tell you that like, oh man, Pokemon's fallen off. It's not as big as it used to be, and yet meanwhile it's like, you know, literally the biggest thing in the world.
Yes, Pokemon is the biggest IP in the world, and what does Nintendo and Game Freak do with them? They make games that are practically broken. The best examples would be Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. Apart from the game looking like a fucking mobile game, it is riddled with bugs. It is overall a game that shouldn't have been released the way it was, but it was released the way it was just for a quick buck. Even with Sword and Shield, it seems like Game Freak and Nintendo are trying to ruin Pokemon. And also a fun fact here, Harman made a live stream back then, and no joke, he was saying the game was having no bugs, while the game was practically falling apart around him. If I could find it, I'd definitely show it, because it was one of the most desperate things I've seen in quite a while.
Okay, yeah, the whole cope about Pokemon is just one example. You know, back in the day, people used to scream at you about like Frozen is what the kids are into today, Disney. And what happens? You know, the entire Disney corporation just collapses. You know, everyone hates them.
May I please remind you all that the topic of his video was how Diddy Kong is better than P Diddy? It is now over a minute of his video done. Dude, finally get to the point. Also, yes, everyone hates Disney by now for practically the same reason as people hate Nintendo. Both Disney and Nintendo are trying to monopolize their respective industries. Which is why, with Nintendo, people are now putting their foot down and say, hold up, this is insanity. And you realize it with Disney. And if you actually fail to realize it with Nintendo, Harman, then you just genuinely don't care.
And once they're like 40-year-old, obese, man-child, Disney adult demographic, you know.
Now that is irony.
Has one foot in the grave, the company is just going to implode, okay? Disney is done. They are not relevant. You know, Star Wars isn't relevant. Marvel. Like, Nintendo's going to dominate all of that.
Shut your fucking mouth! No problem, John. Shut the fuck up, you cunt!
Right. But the overwhelming majority of the Western world doesn't like admitting it. They don't like admitting how successful Nintendo is. They don't actually like acknowledging that this company is bigger and better than their favorite thing.
We are not denying that Nintendo is successful, but when you and those other fanboys start freaking out and say that it is so much better than what we like, then yes, we are gonna make fun of you, since you are too stubborn to understand that people have different tastes in things. And without having any knowledge about what you are yapping about, Harman, you still decide to act like you know everything in the world, even though you make claims that can be debunked with a quick Google search. I mean, it took you 2 whole years to play Elden Ring, and in the streams you were clearly enjoying it, even though you were trying to deny it. Because as long as something isn't a Nintendo exclusive, you decide to attack the property and belittle everyone that likes those properties. Which is something that people can then pick apart and criticize you for.
And they certainly don't like acknowledging that their preferred icons and their preferred celebrities aren't shit, okay? Like, I've talked about this, like, before, several times in the past, but the most glaring example to me in, like, the past year is the whole Diddy Kong thing. Because, of course, we know that there's some no-name hip-hop artist called P Diddy that got arrested for doing something, I don't know, being gay, like all these rappers are, he was gay.
And we finally get to the main topic of this train wreck of a video, and Harman already shows that he has no idea what he is talking about, which is very bad with something like the Diddy controversy. He wasn't arrested for being gay, he was arrested for sexually assaulting children, which is a big shock to many people because he committed the most heinous crime a human could ever commit. And with the most rappers are gay argument, why are you trying to use that as a derogatory thing? It doesn't make you look cool, it just makes you look even more pathetic because it shows that you got mentally stuck in the 1950s.
Like the narrative was that, like, oh man, Nintendo can't use Diddy Kong anymore because P Diddy was so big and he was so iconic and he was such a relevant thing. Like, P Diddy was huge. Like, Nintendo can't use Diddy Kong because that would be associating the character with pedophilia. Like, never mind that, like, Diddy Kong is bigger than P Diddy ever was. Never mind that Diddy Kong came first. Never mind that Diddy Kong will stay relevant after P Diddy's career is over. Never mind, like, the fact that the character is just so iconic, so fun, has so much going on. Now,
would you mind showing the proof? Because I know that you can edit, and even if that existed, it would only be halfway right. P Diddy was pretty iconic for his time, but I don't think that people want the name Diddy Kong to be changed. They're probably just saying that it is a very unfortunate coincidence that Diddy Kong has the same first name as this monster.
Let's just throw all that out of the window to pretend that a hip-hop artist that nobody has ever heard of is bigger than Diddy Kong.
I'm sorry, but a rapper that nobody has ever heard of? He was mentioned in Kesha's song TikTok, as well as being featured in the soundtrack of a Godzilla movie. And since that whole pedophilia thing with him was exposed, his name had been all over the news, which is something you would have noticed if you have ever lifted your head up to listen to the news. And if you would start looking at the world around you, you clearly have no idea what you are talking about. And trust me, once you start going after the music industry, by the way, I will really put you in your place.
Like, let's just think about that for a second. A hip hop artist, someone that has no real talent, who is, like, entirely controlled by the music industry, who is just pushed to the forefront in that sphere to try and indoctrinate, society into being criminals, someone who is a pedophile, who sexually assaults other people, who has contributed nothing of value to society or to the music industry, or like...
Oh, what's that, Harman? I guess I just caught you in a lie. You try to act as if you don't know anything about P Diddy, and now you admit that you knew it was something with pedophilia and sexual assaults, which contradicts everything you said before. Isn't it amazing? He just fucked himself over with his own hypocrisy.
Like anything. You were gonna sit there and tell me that P Diddy, at any point in his career, was bigger than Diddy Kong. That's just laughably stupid, and it's just laughably off base as to, like, what the reality of the situation is. The reality is, all of these celebrities are forced. They don't have any real talent. Nobody actually likes them. Nobody actually follows their careers.
Stop the cap.
Nobody actually, like, looks at someone like P Diddy and thinks he's someone, like, worthy of emulating, or someone who's respectable, or someone who has any real talent. All they care about is, like, being like him, in the sense of, like, getting away with raping Justin Bieber.
And you are an absolutely dim-witted lockhead if you actually think that everyone in the music industry is like Diddy or R. Kelly or Ian Watkins. No, those people are luckily a minority, or maybe I think that because I still believe that this world isn't insane. While there are monsters like Diddy, there are also people that are just good people that would never do something like that. You really gotta have a black and white thought process to think that everyone in the music industry is a pedophile.
You know, that's the mindset of like every fan of the music industry, is that they wish they could be as hedonistic and disgusting and depraved as Taylor Swift, as Eminem, as like, all of these like big names who are just
You serious?
every single one of them can get mogged by like a random chick at a country music event with a acoustic guitar, right? It's kind of shocking, when you actually, see like local musicians and like how talented they are and what they can do and the original compositions that they make, just how much better and more like culturally relevant those people are than like the big names that are pushed by the industry.
Okay, Harman, I have a dare for you. Download FL Studio and try to make a full-on song. Because once you actually try to do something like that, you immediately notice how hard such things are to make. Those world-famous musicians have made it to the top because they have genuine talent. And I mean, there are also a lot of smaller artists that also have a lot of talent. And those smaller artists have the same thing that all the people who made it to the top also have. And that is passion. They all have genuine passion for their music. People like Diddy, they only saw it as a ticket to get rich quick. Those aren't real musicians. Real musicians have an actual drive. They have genuine passion for what they do.
Right. And I do think that is something we do need to talk about a lot more when it comes to these kind of things. Nobody in the music industry has any real talent. It's all fake. It's all like astroturf. It always was. None of these people are like, genuinely talented or like worthy of respect in any way, shape, or form. Right. They are all losers.
Okay, now you have offended me. You call those people losers, even the ones that aren't like Diddy. Let me tell you something. They at least made something out of their lives. You're just sitting in your basement ranting about whatever at this point. Because you genuinely are nothing more than a lolcow. You're a laughing stock. You're the kind of person that Nintendo haters use as an example to dunk on Nintendo fans that just enjoy the games. And trust me, as long as you don't understand that, I'll keep on making videos on you.
And it does need to be emphasized more among the community that trying to associate like, Nintendo's brand, which is more successful than anything in the music industry.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it. I award you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul.
Then with someone like P Diddy is just like laughably off base. It was just stupid. It was just such a unmeaningful comparison. It really was just an attempt at trying to like continue this farce into pretending that like Nintendo is like some underground thing when in reality it's super mainstream and everyone likes it.
You are made of stupid.
Like it's just one of those things where like the rap industry is still trying to convince people that it isn't crap, Like it's just appalling. And I do think that is one of the major cultural things we really need to go through, over the next like 20 years, is acknowledging that like, yes, South Park was a bad show. Rap culture was bad for society. Grand Theft Auto was like, it does need to be acknowledged more that these kinds of like degenerate media are negatively impacting people.
That argument is complete garbage and you know it. While there are rappers that aren't good and overuse autotune, there are also bands and artists like Wu-Tang Clan, P-Tane or Mike Shinoda with his band Linkin Park. Okay, Linkin Park is more nu metal or alternative rock, but I'll still count it because it has a lot of hip-hop elements. Those people are people that have real talent. But anyways, I'm just done with this video. I'm sorry that I got so angry there, but the sheer obliviousness is just astounding. But still, this goes out to everyone. Don't send him any harassment. That would only make you look as bad as those Nintendo extremists. And now, to close the video, we get to the special thanks. Special thanks to Indominus Pack, Spino Blue and Spinozilla 2005 for making my character stills, as well as Spino Blue making the background for my videos. Also special thanks to Gatorboy for helping me with the thumbnails, and to Alligator Enthusiast aka Dracon for making my channel's profile picture. All of their channels are linked in the description. And with that, thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please consider liking and subscribing. I'll see you all in the next video. Stay cold and goodbye.